And, not least, the fight to end forced labour and child labour. All these trade union rights make up an important part of our human rights. Because the right to work has little meaning if it is not also a right to decent work, without exploitation. Because there can be no social justice in the world without the right to work in safety and dignity. Although nations are now required to respect trade union rights under international conventions, they often fail in their efforts to do so because global companies are so powerful. Regimes that imprison trade unionists, that violate the right to freedom of association, that allow union representatives to be persecuted, are always rotten regimes. And when the trade union movement is threatened, we are in reality all threatened, no matter where in the world this happens. The Svensson International Prize for Trade Union Rights was established in 2010 by Industri Energi. Svensson was the president of the Norwegian Union of Chemical Industry Workers for 17 years and was deeply committed to international trade union work. The goal of the prize is to promote trade union work and trade union rights, nationally as well as internationally. The prize has been awarded annually since its inception in 2010. Each Svensson Prize laureate has confirmed that receiving the prize played a key role in their struggle. For example, the awarding of the prize secured the release of Russian trade union leader Valentin Yarashuk. It has enabled the Cambodian Textile Workers Union to build their organization and to unionize more workers. And the Trade Union of Agricultural Workers on South African vineyards to develop their organization and to recruit and unionize more members. The prize has helped teachers in the Philippines to learn about their rights and about what to do if they are harassed by the police and the army. It has enabled Labour Start to step up its work on global solidarity campaigns in support of workers who are persecuted by the authorities and multinational companies throughout the world. Every laureate has benefited from the protection from harm provided by the prize. The trade union movement is international. With strong trade unions, decent working conditions, robust civil societies, and stable institutions in every country, the world will be a safer place for us all.
Dear sisters and brothers, comrades and friends, welcome to the 16th Svensson International Prize for Trade Union Rights Award. My name is Amalie Hilde Tofte, and I will guide you through the program today. Last week, the ITUC published the annual Global Rights Index, which is a worldwide study of the violation of workers' rights. Violation of freedoms that form the basis of democracy, democratic rule of law, and fair working conditions for us all. We see a shrinking space for civil society. ITUC calls it a global crisis for workers and unions. They report that the average country rating deteriorated in 3 out of 5 global regions, with Europe and Americas recording their worst score since the first report in 2014. In this increasingly hostile environment, a growing number of states are adopting legislations that criminalizes civil society organizations and trade unions. They call them foreign agents, and political and trade union activists are called criminals and extremists. In these dark times, it's important to shed light on trade union heroes who stand up and fight for workers' rights and a fairer future for us all. Like the man we will honor today, Aliaksandr Yarashuk. Once again, I would like to welcome you and thank you for showing international solidarity by attending this ceremony in person or on a stream. We are pleased that we have a representative for the government as our first speaker. Åsmund Aukrust from the Labour Party is the Minister of International Development and is responsible for the aid portfolio. One of his priorities are decent work. We appreciate that the Minister had time to come in a very busy schedule. Please welcome Åsmund Aukrust.
Thank you. Dear friends and dear colleagues in the trade union, I'm very glad to be here and to be a part of this opening of this very important award. We are living in very challenging time at the moment, with a lack of trust among people, among states, with brutal wars all around us. And what maybe concerns me the most is how we see that democracy is dying in many countries around us. And we see that civil society are attacked. And in this political landscape, what really gives me hope is people. People that organize themselves. People that understand that if we should win, if we should live in freedom with human rights, we need to stand together. And this is especially for the trade unionists. And we know it from our own history in Norway, how important the trade union has been to organize people, to create welfare, to create our democracy, and to give human rights for all. And we know that in our movements, our strength is that we are so many, that we are on the streets, that we are in the meeting rooms, that we are organizing new members. But a strong movement also needs strong leaders. Those that are the bravest among us, those that are in front and talk on behalf of all of us. And therefore, I think it's such a great initiative that's been taken, that was taken by Styrke some years ago, to have this Arthur Svensson Prize to really honor some of the most important human rights defenders that we have in the world. And I'm especially glad to be here today to award one that I think really deserves the prize for 2025. So I am very glad to be here, but I must also say that, there is also in sorrow to be here. I'm honored to be here on this day because we can congratulate one of our most important human rights defenders and one of the most important defenders for human rights in Belarus and globally. And he really has made a difference for his people and is an inspiration to all of us. As president of the Belarusian Congress of Democratic Trade Unions, Yarashuk has been in the forefront in fighting for independent democratic trade unions. But as I think we all are feeling when we are here today in Samfunnssalen, we also feel a lot of sorrow because he has paid the highest price. He is still imprisoned today, and Yarashuk was not able to be here to receive his prize today. And I am also informed that he is not even informed that he has been awarded this prize in prison. But therefore I think it's especially, welcome to all of you, but especially to his son, Yuri, and his colleague, Elisaveta Marilak, for being here today on his behalf and also for receiving the prize on his behalf. As I started off with, the labor movement, they play a very important role in ensuring democracy, in ensuring economic growth and ensuring equality for all people. And this is, as also already said by the host here, this is a very high priority from the Labour Party government in Norway. And we believe that civil society and especially trade union are maybe our most important partner in achieving our goal. We, as democratic countries, we must stand firm and fight against authoritarian forces everywhere. So the Norwegian government, we urge the Belarusian authorities to release Mr. Yarashuk immediately, along with all the other political prisoners in Belarus. There are today more than 1,200 political prisoners in Belarus. Many are kept in isolation and denied illegal assistance. Norway condemns these acts from their government, and we are demanding their freedom. We are demanding their human rights and their freedom to express their opinion and to fight for fundamental human rights through peaceful protests. Ever since the 2020 election, Norway has supported the Belarusians in their struggle for democracy, independence, and freedom. And as I said, the trade union is one of our most important partners in this, in Belarus and globally. And we are, of course, very shocked of how the Belarusian government has met this and had met their protests and civil society and trade union activists with violence and imprisonment. The international community has reacted in unison of the repression in Belarus since 2020, as well as some Belarus support for Russia in the war against Ukraine. And Norway, we are aligned with all our European partners in the sanctions against Belarus in this regard. The political prisoners and their family are particularly concerned of us, and Norway was therefore the first country to make a substantial contribution of 10 million Norwegian crowns, or about 1 million euros, in the International Fund for Victims of Repression in Belarus. Despite the number of political prisoners, despite the release of number of political prisoners last year, still is the situation very dark. Many Belarusian oppositional leaders, human rights defenders, journalists and others, they are still labeled as terrorists or extremists. And I believe that the Belarusian people, as all people all around the world, should be allowed to choose their leaders and choose the direction for their country through free and fair elections. Let me end up again with congratulating Yarashuk through his son and colleague on the very well-deserved prize. This is a true recognition of his vision for independent union in defense for fundamental workers' rights in Belarus and everywhere. And I look forward to, at some point, welcome Aliaksandr here in Oslo, where he really can receive his prize in person and give his speech to us. Norway will continue to support the Belarusian people for free, democratic, and independent Belarus. He represents some of the bravest persons alive, so I think all of us feel honored to be here and to congratulate him through his son and his colleague. Thank you so much.
Hello. спину, призначений льосом, для когось сестел. Смерть и смех, для когось земля матухна. Но наши околы везут нас туди, целя жизнь. Радиоактивный снег, радиоактивный снег, радиоактивный снег, радиоактивный снег. Ведаешь, я так хотел размовлять с тобой. У ночной тишине ты повинен памятать о том, что мы сами писали правила. К этой хуйне ты повинен чуть меня, але ты чуешь загадковый губ, небеспечный свет, и все потонуло навоколо окна. И падая на нас радиоактивный снег, радиоактивный снег, радиоактивный снег, радиоактивный снег. И может, что нам пора помирать, але нечто зовет жить. Так хотел нас весь час выбачаться ли мы так хотели любить. И каждый из нас, прошедший свой шлях, поспел покинуть свой след. И коли мы сразу умели, что нечто не так пошел радиоактивный снег.
My name is Frode Alfheim, and on behalf of the Prize Committee for the Arthur Svensson's International Prize for Trade Union Rights, which I chair, I would like to use this opportunity to announce that the 2025 Arthur Svensson International Prize for Trade Union Rights goes to Aliaksandr Yarashuk. He is president of the Belarusian Congress of Democratic Trade Unions, BKDP, vice president to the International Trade Union Confederation, and a member of the International Labour Organization, ILO, governing body. He has been imprisoned since 2022 for his uncompromising defense of fundamental workers' rights, human rights and democracy. Yarashuk has sacrificed his personal freedom to defend the rights to organize, act collectively and conduct trade union work. Belarus is considered Europe's worst country for workers. After the 2020 presidential election, which was clearly fraudulent, the situation deteriorated. There is no freedom of expression, nor freedom of association. The independent trade union movement has been banned, and workers who oppose the regime are met with dismissal, harassment, police violence, arbitrary detention, torture and disappearances. This is part of the regime's scheme to eliminate the independent trade union movement. As a strategy to defend trade union independence in Belarus, Yarashuk and his colleagues initiated a complaint to the ILO Committee of Freedom of Association in 2002. The Belarusian government failed to make progress on implementation of conventions and failed to respond to ILO's Commission of Inquiry's recommendations. For the second time in history, the ILO adopted a resolution under Article 33, which allows member states to impose severe sanctions against the regime in Belarus. In the spring of 2022, Yarashuk publicly protested Belarus' participation in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Following this statement, the Union office and his home were searched and electronic equipment confiscated. Yarashuk was arrested and placed in custody, charged of group actions grossly violating public order. In 2021, the independent trade union movement of Belarus, presented by BKDP and its affiliated unions, were awarded the Arthur Svensson International Prize for Trade Union Rights for their fearless struggle for democracy and fundamental trade union rights. The Belarusian government has escalated repression against independent trade unions and their members, but Yarashuk refuses to be intimidated and silenced. He refuses to give in, even though his life is at stake. The committee wants to honor Yarashuk's resolution and long-standing fight for trade union rights by awarding him the 2025 Arthur Svensson International Prize for Trade Union Rights.
You just saw the movie we made to announce this year's prize. The musicians, Aliaksandr and Oladsibir, they come from Belarus. Their music, which is political songs and protest songs, has been banned in Belarus. They are proclaimed as extremists. Both of them, they live in exile in Poland and Estonia. And Lithuania, sorry. We are very grateful to have them here today, and we will hear more from them later. Our next speaker is also from Belarus. She came to Norway in 2015. Alexandra Safanova is senior advisor at the Norwegian Helsinki Committee. The committee is a non-governmental organization working to ensure that human rights are respected in practice through monitoring, reporting, teaching, and democracy support. Please welcome Alexandra.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to be present here today at the awarding ceremony of a brave and resilient person, a political prisoner, Aliaksandr Yarashuk. As it was mentioned, I represent Norwegian Helsinki Committee, where I work as senior advisor, mostly with Belarus portfolio and Russia portfolio. Norwegian Helsinki Committee is one of the oldest human rights organizations in Norway. It was founded in 1977 after the signing of Helsinki Accords in 1975. And this year we celebrate the anniversary of the Helsinki Awards with a huge event tomorrow at the Litteraturhuset, for those of you who might be interested. And as it was also been mentioned, we work through monitoring, documentation, and advocacy in the post-Soviet countries, including Belarus. And I was invited here today to set up a little bit of a context for you to understand better what kind of conditions Aliaksandr, his colleagues, and many, many other Belarusians are working in or have been working in, and what they have to face as an ultimate prize for their work and their efforts to support human rights. all the way since 2020, after the mass protests against yet another falsified elections in Belarus, there have been repressions, and they have not stopped for a single day for almost 5 years now. Looking from the outside, many analysts say now that the repressions have reached some kind of plateau, but it's not true. The arrests are still happening every single day, and prisons are filled with innocent people, and transnational repressions are only expanding every day. Over 35,000 people have been detained since 2020. As of today, there is 1,187 political prisoners who are imprisoned, and these people are activists, journalists, human rights defenders, trade union representatives, lawyers, and simple citizens who just wanted to assert their rights as any other human would do. Since last summer, there have been some releases of political prisoners that the regime uses to look more legitimate, and I will talk a little bit about it later. But even though we as a human rights community are really happy for these people to be released, to be free, to be able to meet their families, we also recognize that this is just the tactics that the regime uses, and it shouldn't be taken seriously. As it has also been mentioned already by previous speakers, there is no freedom of expression or association in Belarus today. You can check, and Belarus is now on the bottom of most of the human rights indexes, unfortunately. It is also considered to be one of the most dangerous countries for journalists to work. And I also saw one rating concerning journalists and free media a few years ago, after the full-scale invasion started in Ukraine, and Belarus was more dangerous than Ukraine for the journalists, the country where the war goes. There is no registered opposition parties remained in the country. Media outlets have been shut down, some of them forced into exile. Some of them are still operating, but people who read or share the content of this media can be arrested and can face a real sentence in prison. The civil society has been dismantled. Over 1,500 NGOs have been shut down, forced out of the country, including trade unions that share the same fate. The regime and Aliaksandr Lukashenko are widely using the titles extremist and terrorist for all the people showing their protest against the regime. And I think Belarus might be among the countries where we have the biggest amount of extremists and terrorists per capita. As of 2025, there are 5,228 people labeled as extremists and 1,268 individuals branded as terrorists. And this is not just a scary title. When a person is being labeled a terrorist or extremist, this person can't find a work, can be employed inside the country. They cannot open a bank account. They can be constantly monitored by the police. And this, of course, contradicts all the international legal standards and the descriptions of what terrorism and extremism actually is. The situation with political prisoners is quite grave as well. I already mentioned the number. It's quite high. Among them, one of the most known political prisoner is Ales Bialiatski. He is a founder of the oldest human rights organization in Belarus, Vesna, and also laureate of the Nobel Peace Prize that he received, or his wife received on behalf of him in 2022. Ales, as many other political prisoners, is held in completely unacceptable conditions in the prison. He is denied medical help, legal aid. He is denied meetings with his families or his right to receive letters from his family. He is denied visits from his lawyer. And he is held in torturous conditions in solitary cells with no particular reason. Sometimes when we talk about political prisoners with people who are not involved in human rights work directly, for some reason they imagine that most political prisoners are young, resilient, healthy people who participated in the protests and are just as healthy and resilient while in prison and can still fight for their rights. But it's not always true, because all kinds of people participated in the protests and were arrested in 2020. As you can see here, as of today, we have a list of people who have to be released first, just because they may not survive the whole sentence in the prison. We have 219 people at high risk. 78 of them are in very poor health conditions, and it means that they can die in prison, or if they are lucky enough to be released before that, they may die right after, as it already happened with a few political prisoners in the recent months. And because of the conditions these people are held in, many of them choose to go on hunger strikes. We have one political prisoner, a woman, Victoria Kulsha. She is she has that of a granddaughter, so to say, of Norwegian politician Rasmus Hansson from MDG. She is now on her fourth hunger strike, and her family is really concerned that it might be her last one. And all this is because people cannot survive the conditions they are put in. The most difficult one is incommunicado, and this is the kind of torture when people are completely isolated and refused any kind of contact with the outer world. They're held in solitary confinement, not allowed letters, calls, visits from the lawyers, and it lasts not for days and months, it lasts for years. You can imagine what it can do to psychological health and, of course, the physical state of these people. On the previous slide, there was also a line saying that political prisoners often held or are being treated much worse than other prisoners that have actually committed crimes. And when I talk about it, I often use this example of a female political prisoner who served her sentence and came out of prison last April. And when she was relocated to a safer place, she agreed to give an interview to tell a little bit more about the conditions she was held in. And she said that in this group of women that she shared her cell with, there was this one woman who was sentenced to many years in prison because she burned 2 of her children in a fireplace to death. And this person was treated better than political prisoners, women political prisoners, who actually haven't done anything to be there. And about the releases that I also mentioned briefly at the beginning, since last summer, Lukashenko started to release groups of political prisoners. Most of them were almost done with their sentences. They had a few months to go. Some of them were in poor health conditions. But as I already said, all this is done in very tactical time frame, right after or before negotiations about the sanctions, or when there is a possibility for the regime to participate in some kind of negotiations on the international level. Again, in the human rights community, we always support any kind of release because we know that the human life is the most important thing, but we also try to stand together in the understanding that we should release all political prisoners. The releases should not be conditioned, and also they should not lead to the ease of sanctions on the regime. To conclude, I just want to say that today Belarus is experiencing one of Europe's worst human rights crises in decades, and the international community must sustain the pressure through sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and support for Belarusian civil society. Of course, support for political prisoners is also very, very important, and the fact that you are here today to commemorate Aliaksandr Yarashuk is also very important. It may not affect his situation immediately, today or tomorrow, but I know from a lot of feedback that we get from the released political prisoners that just the fact that he is appreciated and his work is not forgotten, and it has been talked about in the international community, is of grave importance for him. At some point, he will learn about it, and he will really, really appreciate it. So thank you for the award, and continue the resilience.
Thank you so much, Alexandra, for presenting this background information for us. Our next speaker is Elizaveta Merliak. She is representing the Democratic Trade Unions of Belarus and is head of Solidarność, as International Secretary of the Belarusian Independent Trade Union. She was arrested in 2020. Activists from inside and outside Belarus protested the arrest. We did as well, and she was released. In 2022, after being arrested again, and the president of her union was arrested, she left Belarus with her 2 young children. She asked trade union friends in Germany for help, and she got asylum. In Bremen, Elizaveta and her colleagues from the Belarusian trade union movement, they have formed Solidarność, and they continue their work for trade union rights in Belarus. One of their priorities is, of course, to release the political prisoners. Please welcome Elizaveta.
Dear brothers and sisters, dear colleagues, dear comrades, dear friends, I'm very happy to be here today to represent my organization, Association Solidarność, which is solidarity in Belarusian, and also to represent the Belarusian Congress of Democratic Trade Unions. I would like to go into more details about the grave situation with human and workers' rights in Belarus. And I'm sorry that you would hear all those details, but I think that it is exactly a good time and place to share. Belarus is one of the 10 worst countries for workers, according to the International Trade Union Confederation Global Rights Index. It ranks among the world champions for human rights violations, including trade union rights. Since 2022, it has been classified as a country with no freedom of association. Arrests continue daily at workplaces across Belarus for offenses ranging from subscribing to independent news channels to appearing in photographs from the 2020 protests, donating to civil society initiatives, supporting human rights defenders, or assisting a political prisoner's family. Since 2020, hundreds of activists have been arrested, interrogated, and held in police custody for days and weeks. Over 70 trade union and labor activists, organizers, and leaders have been detained. To this date, 27 of our comrades are in prison. Labeled as extremists and terrorists, they wear yellow tags on their prison uniforms to distinguish them from ordinary criminals, marking them as enemies of the state. Among them are medical workers, railway workers, students, lawyers, scientists, workers in the chemical and metal industry, and engineers. Among them is the chairman of the Belarusian Congress of Democratic Trade Unions, Aliaksandr Yarashuk. I would like to draw your attention to the inhuman and degrading prison conditions faced by Belarusian political prisoners, many of whom are trade union leaders, activists, and members. These people who have dared to exercise their fundamental right to freedom of association, which is enshrined in International Labour Organization Convention number 87. They are now behind bars for doing just that. In Belarusian colonies and prisons, political prisoners are labeled extremists and marked with yellow tags. This marks them as enemies of the state, and they are subjected to increased surveillance, restrictions on correspondence, isolation, and psychological pressure. They are held in harsh conditions, overcrowded cells, absence of medical care, food shortages, denial of family visits, and in some cases, solitary confinement. In the detention centers, they are prohibited from taking advantage of educational opportunities and participating in sports and cultural events. Many are forced to work, even in hazardous jobs. For example, dismantling cables containing heavy metals without protective equipment. This is a direct violation of the International Labour Organization Convention number 29 on the prohibition of forced labor, as well as Convention number 155 on occupational safety and health. And these practices continue. We have testimonies from former political prisoners who were only released after serving their full sentence. Not only are they forced to work in hazardous conditions, they also work almost without pay, often less than €1 per month. They have absolutely no choice in the tasks that they are given. Let's be clear, this is retribution for political beliefs. It is an instrument to suppress and intimidate trade unions and any dissenting opinion. Social status, state of health, gender, age, and number of children make no difference to the regime. Everyone is equally mistreated. Female prisoners, including mothers of young children, are also subject to repression. Some have been sentenced to 5 to 11 years, and throughout this time, they have been denied the right to see their children. From the testimonies of the released female colleagues, we know that they were constantly tortured and severely punished by being placed in solitary confinement in freezing cold cells without bedding, without personal belongings, and for each disobedience for 15 days. In 2025, CEDAW urges the Belarusian government to abolish forced labor in correctional institutions, including for women, and remove the undue restrictions on freedom of association, ensuring the right of women to form and join independent trade unions. Furthermore, there are older political prisoners who are being treated inhumanly. One of our comrades, who was over 70 years old, was sentenced to 9 years, basically a life sentence. I must highlight the urgent and critical humanitarian situation of 2 trade unionists in particular. Václav Areška, aged 70, a long-time activist with the Radio Electronic Workers Union and editor of its newspaper. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison in 2023. Since his imprisonment, Václav's health has deteriorated alarmingly. He is now nearly blind and almost has lost the ability to walk, a direct result of the harsh prison conditions and denial of medical assistance. Hinat Fedinic, aged 67, vice chair of the Radio Electronic Workers Union. He was sentenced to 9 years in prison in 2023. He suffers from severe heart disease, diabetes, and has only 1 kidney. Despite these life-threatening conditions, he too is being held under enhanced security restrictions and is not receiving the medical care he urgently needs. This is systematic, state-sponsored cruelty against people who dare to speak their minds. Yet the Belarusian government continues to deny the existence of repressions. In Belarus, the released political prisoners being released doesn't mean restoration of rights and rehabilitation. On the contrary, systematic persecution continues even after prison. Former detainees remain under so-called preventive supervision, which restricts their movement, prohibits attendance at public events, and obliges them to report to the police weekly. In some cases, they cannot even leave their places of residence without special permission. All of them are included in official lists of extremists, and in some cases even terrorists. This is not just a label, it has serious consequences: frozen bank accounts, bans on employment, exclusion from education, and widespread fear and stigma. Trade union activists released from prison are still unable to return to their professional life. Their diplomas, employment records, pension, and healthcare rights are often inaccessible. Social stigma and pressure from law enforcement persist. We must stress, this is not about isolated incidents, but about a policy of continued punishment beyond prison walls. It is a form of control, intimidation, and exclusion, without trial, without appeal, and without the right to forget. I address you today on behalf of those whose voices are being silenced, not metaphorically, but literally. In today's Belarus, it is not only dangerous to stand up for workers' rights, it is dangerous to know that you have rights. In March 2024, a court ruled that materials, symbols, and even the media resources of Solidarność, the representation of Belarusian Congress of Democratic Trade Unions in Exile, were extremist. This was a logical continuation of the repression aimed at completely excluding workers from the free information space. From that moment on, any interaction with independent trade unions became a crime. For reading union news, subscribing to an independent Telegram channel, liking or forwarding a post, you can be arrested, fired, or sent to prison. Sometimes without the right to defense, with a yellow label saying extremist. Workers can no longer freely receive information about their rights, the situation in their workplaces. The only authorized source of information is the pro-government Federation of Trade Unions of Belarus, Everything else is illegal. From 2020 to 2024, more than 22,500 so-called offenses of the extremist nature were registered in the country. This term does not refer to terrorism or violence, but to postings, subscriptions, and interviews. People's smartphones are checked directly at their workplaces, in factories, schools, and offices. The law to counter extremism has been an instrument of total intimidation. This is not a fight against extremism. This is a fight against the truth. This is a ban on the existence of an independent trade union movement. Today, the right to information itself is under attack in Belarus, and with it, the right to freedom of expression, freedom of association, and the basic dignity of working people. The workplaces of Belarusians are considered good places for arrests. We know that arrests occur daily in workplaces across Belarus, whether in state, private, or foreign companies. Employees can be arrested as criminals by special detachment of armed officers if, for example, they subscribe to an independent news channel, or put a like under a post on social media, or are seen in photos of 2020 protests, or they donate to civil society initiatives or support human rights activists to stand by the family of a political prisoner. There is pressure and intimidation in the workplaces there. We know that there are ideological departments in all state-owned companies that control the degree of loyalty of workers, of employees to the state. These structures are integrated into the management, the human resources departments. Short-term contracts, which have been common in Belarus for almost 20 years, continue to be used to keep employees in fear of losing their jobs. At the state enterprise Grodna Azot, which produces nitrogen fertilizers, lie detectors are used systematically, both when deciding on the renewal of employment contracts and during the hiring processes. There is also evidence that the use of polygraphs is practiced at other state-owned enterprises. In addition, job applicants are required to submit a reference from their previous employer, where loyalty is a key factor in employment decisions. At the same time, there are unofficial lists of disloyal citizens who are denied employment. Following the forced and unlawful liquidation of all independent trade unions and the de facto impossibility of creating new ones, workers outside the Federation of Trade Unions of Belarus are entirely excluded from the collective bargaining process. They are left without representation, voice, or protection. It is an abuse of collective agreements by the Federation of Trade Unions of Belarus as tools of persecution and discrimination. There is extensive evidence of positive discrimination in favor of workers at state-owned enterprises who are members of pro-government unions affiliated with the Federation of Trade Unions of Belarus. Key benefits, including bonuses, health support, and retirement payments, are routinely reserved for Federation of Trade Unions of Belarus members only. The Arthur Svensson Prize is a recognition of the alarming deterioration of workers and human rights in Belarus. It is at the same time a symbol of trust in Belarusian workers in their fight. Under repressions, being threat with losing everything, Aliaksandr Yarashuk continued talking on behalf of Belarusian workers. Indeed, Aliaksandr Yarashuk and Belarusian Congress of Democratic Trade Unions were the only anti-war voice of Belarusian workers in the country. I thank you very much for inviting us here and for awarding this prize to our prominent leader. And I would like to conclude with something positive, with a belief that we all share. Once, Dan Galin, a very wise trade unionist that recently passed away, and we will miss him, dedicated these words to the Belarusian independent trade union movement. He said, "The dictatorship will fall, no matter how strong they may seem at the moment. And the workers will continue organizing for the best of the society and for justice and for decency. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sister. When we talk to our international trade union colleagues, we often highlight the Norwegian or the Nordic model and the importance of social dialogue. We are pleased that the president of the Confederation of Norwegian Enterprises, NHO, and CEO of Yara International, Svein-Tore Holsæter, is here today and can display this model in practice. Yara had close contact with the democratic trade unions in Belarus when they had business partners there. And the dialogue was highly appreciated by the unions, both in Belarus and in Norway. So please welcome Svein-Tore Holsæter.
Thank you very much, dear friends. For me, it's really a great honor to be here today at the award of the Arthur Svensson Prize. This is a prize that carries great weight and meaning. And look, it may not be obvious, but Aliaksandr Yarashuk's case is one that is very close to my heart and to Yara. To be present here today is very emotional, but I'll do my best. Staying or not staying in Belarus was really an extremely difficult decision for us, and something that kept me awake for many nights after the presidential election in August 2020. For many years, Yara was the largest customer of the state-owned company Belarus Kali. We were sourcing potash. And for us, we felt that we could contribute in a positive way through close relations with the workers and with the independent unions. But clearly, as the Lukashenko regime grew more and more repressive, the calls for Yara to pull out of Belarus became stronger and louder every day. We kept a close dialogue with the unions, and they wanted us to stay. And we wanted to stay as long as we could, because we believed that we could contribute to upholding workers' rights. But clearly, after the presidential election in 2020, I then reached out to the Norwegian Labour Union, LO, and many of you are here today. Thank you. And I asked for advice. I needed advice. What do we do now? Do we pull out, or what do we do? And the message was very clear. Yara should stay, and staying will benefit the Belarus Kali workers. At the same time, Lisabeta, who was just on stage, she reached out to our head of the union in Yara, Mr. Geir Sundbø. And she said that she had read every part of Yara's code of conduct and asked him, is it real? Do you live by those rules, or is it just on paper? Because things are tough here, and it's getting tougher. And Geir said, absolutely, it's valid everywhere we operate. He hung up, and then he called me right away, which is not normal. We talk together pretty much every day. But there was something different when he called me, the level of intensity and the clarity of the message. And he told me that we need to travel into Belarus. We need to convey the message to our supplier, and we need to meet with the unions. And keep in mind, here we're in the fall of 2020. It's the height of the pandemic. I told him it will not be easy to go to Belarus. He said, well, I don't care, we're going. And we did. And we did on 2 occasions, actually. And that's also where we met with Aliaksandr Yarashuk. And the message from Yarashuk was really an echo of what we heard from LO here in Norway, that Yara can make a difference, and that the alternative to Yara would be customers that most likely would not care about the workers' rights. And the strong relationships that we were then building with Elisaveta and Aliaksandr really strengthened my conviction that the best thing that we could do at that time was to use our leverage as a customer to convey the importance of workers' rights. And Aliaksandr really showed an immense courage, wisdom, and integrity. And of course, he was under pressure as well from all parts, from the regime, and also from those that loudly told us and him that Yara should leave. But he was steadfast in his commitment to the workers. And we worked together during very demanding times. And Aliaksandr also joined me in meetings with Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. And I'm convinced that this also helped her to better understand the position and the interests of the independent unions. We really owe Aliaksandr a deep debt of gratitude for his efforts. And for me, this really underlines the importance and value of social dialogue. When we as a company work together with unions, we can make a difference. And as a Norwegian company, this is a model that we can bring with us in a world where democratic values are increasingly threatened. We often highlight trust and social dialogue as hallmarks of our way of organizing working life. This matters more now than ever, and we must hold on to these values. I'm very proud of our collaboration with Aliaksandr, Elisaveta, and the independent trade unions in Belarus. We stood together during very difficult times. Sadly, Aliaksandr is paying a very high price for that. He's paying a very high price for his commitment. And we really hope that he will be released from prison soon. And we strongly support the efforts of Elisaveta and Solidarność. Thank you.
We, as a lot of hundreds of thousands of Belarusians, were forced to leave our country due to political prisoners. In other case, we would have ended up in the prison. And the next 2 songs will be in Belarusian language, as the first one. The immigrant song and the country under occupation.
Thank you, that you stand with us, stand with Belarus. We are not Russia. This is important thing. Ти світ порівняв з больницей, де хочем змінити спокій. Одним окно з навальницей, как волю достать с рукой. Другим молочные реки и просто увырые мосты, з яких співають нам реки, неоскореные коты. Теперь благословите вылой, иллюзии тих один. Большие веселцы увырей, отрапили у карантин. Ніби у забытой поэме, где слов давно не шутно. Две грации Медеми у черно-белом кино. Эмигрант, эмигрант, эмигрант сонг. Ветер сбивает с думок и ног. Бачим свой край у сног с волей и долей. Эмигрант, эмигрант, выбор слез. Котится по небе с контрабандою воз. Слезы в очах становятся болей. Спливають студи делепі у новий цудовний світ. Сляпянка з великої слепні з-под век глядять у след. А світ гуляє з душою, покуль до мети бежим, і робить своє чужое, як дома своє чужим. Мы делимся новым стилем, мы дыхаем про запас. Годинник под имшим шпилем показывает инший час. С галинкой чужой просторы сбираем гнезды свои. Жабрак с веселкой торбы надею нам подает. Эмигрант, эмигрант, эмигрант сон. Ветер сбивая с думок и ног. Бачим свой край с волей и долей. Эмигрант, эмигрант, выбор телес. Котится по небе с контрабандою воз. Взор в очах становится болей. Мы так долго не глядели у розістерки, что забыли, як выглядаюць наши твары. Так долго скавытали под горелку, что не заўважылі, як згубілі ўсе свае мары. Каб не заўважаць уласных крокаў, можна доўга чакаць чарцей ворагоў, і можна доўга разважаць пра любоў, калі ў гэты час дзесьці льецца кроў. І калі хацелі ў новых кіраўнікоў, маглі бы выбраць новых, лепшых гаспадароў, чым неандертальцаў з ядзенай дубінай, з неабразанай імперскай пупавінай. Гуляем, танчым, спяваем, паветра нагамі штурхаем. Каля сарціра з нафталінам краіна под акупацыяй, под акупацыяй, под акупацыяй краіна. Под оккупацией, под оккупацией, под оккупацией. И что теперь? Небо у разынках, танцы з бубнамі, сын у інтэграцыйных абдымках. А калі не вадзіць вясёлы карагод, з вами пагаворы з дыджэй-кулямёты. Калі навокал суцэльная срака, мара жыцця, карта паляка ці адразу квіток на далёкі Марс. Марсіяне даўно чакаюць нас, краіна. Под оккупацией, под оккупацией, под оккупацией країна. Под оккупацией, под оккупацией, под оккупацией. И вот эпидемия выходит на плато, мы все удельники. Цирка шапнетом кашет по арене. Клоуны с вусами, квитки у партери мы купляли, сука, купляли сами. Але не все вернутся, не все вернутся додому. Хтось опиниться за кордоном, хтось за кратами, хтось на іншій планеті. Ми всі мороші. Тротиловом еквіваленті. Країна. Под оккупацией, под оккупацией, под оккупацией країна. Под оккупацией, под оккупацией, под оккупацией країна. Под оккупацией, под оккупацией, под оккупацией країна. Под оккупацией, под оккупацией, под оккупацией.
The next speaker has already introduced himself on the video. He is the chair of the prize committee. He is also the president of the union Styrke. Welcome, Frode Alfheim.
Dear friends and comrades, on behalf of the Prize Committee for the Arthur Svensson International Prize for Trade Union Rights, I would like to honor Aliaksandr Yarashuk. The committee represents a wider national and international trade union movement and consists of Tor Arne Solbakken from LO, Raymond Johansen from Norwegian People's Aid, Atle Høie from Industrial Global, Haldis Holst from Educational International, Håvard Lismoen from ES, Liv Tørres from LO, and myself. I would like to thank the Prize Committee for their commitment, their valuable insight, and important discussions. Today, we will award the prize for the 16th time. The prize is presented to a person or organization that has worked predominantly to promote trade union rights and or strengthen trade union organizing around the world. During these years, the prize has been awarded to trade union heroes all over the world. Strong trade unionists from Zimbabwe, Palestine, Russia, Mexico, Bahrain, Chile, Cambodia, South Africa, the Philippines, Kazakhstan, Belarus, Liberia, and Myanmar, as well as the global campaigning organization Labour Start and the International Domestic Workers Federation. Common for all these prize recipients is that they fight for trade union rights and organize workers under difficult conditions. This year's recipient is no exception. Aliaksandr Yarashuk is a long-time leader of the democratic trade union movement in Belarus. Unfortunately, Yarashuk is not able to join us here today as he is in prison. So, dear friends, we all call for Yarashuk's release. And we call for all political prisoners' release. Aliaksandr Yarashuk has no access to news and has only limited and censored communication with his wife. I hope he knows that we are gathered here today to honor his commitment, his determination, and his achievement and his courage. Yarashuk is not the first, and sadly, he will probably not be the last Arthur Svensson Prize recipient who is not able to come here and to be honored and celebrated for his or her achievement. In 2013, the prize was awarded to Russian trade union leader Valentin Urusov for his struggle for labor rights and freedom of association. Urusov was arrested in 2008. He was released in March 2013 after it became known he had been nominated for the Arthur Svensson Prize. The rest of his sentence was converted to fines and prohibition to leave the country. In 2015, the Bahrain Teacher Association by leader Mahdi Abu Deb and deputy leader Yalaila al-Salman were awarded the prize. They were imprisoned in 2011, tortured and humiliated because they encouraged strikes among teachers. Mahdi Abu Deb was sentenced to 5 years in prison in 2011. Yalaila al-Salman was released after nearly 6 months in prison. In 2015, Mahdi was still in prison and Yalaila came to receive the prize. Mahdi joined us at the prize ceremony in 2016. In 2018, the independent trade unions of Kazakhstan, represented by Larisa Harkova, Nurbek Kurshabakev, and Amin Elyosinov, were awarded the prize. Kurshabayev and Elyosinov were in prison for participating in peaceful protests. Harkova received a court sentence restricting her freedom of movement and confiscating her property. All three were banned from holding positions in public organizations, including unions, and were under travel restrictions. They finally got their diploma in 2023. In 2023, Elisabeth Tang, the General Secretary of the International Domestic Workers Federation, was under investigation by the Hong Kong authorities under spurious national security charges. She was under travel restrictions and could not leave Hong Kong to receive the prize. According to the ETUC Global Rights Index, we face a deeply worrying development. In 49% of the countries they examine, it was reported arbitrary arrests or detained trade union members. More than 4 out of 10 countries denied or constrained freedom of speech or assembly. These figures and trends reinforce a global picture in which hard-won democratic rights are under grave and relentless attacks. Among the 10 worst countries for workers in the ETUC report, we find Belarus, where Aliaksandr Yarashuk has fought for labor rights for decades. In 1999, Yarashuk was elected chairman of Belarus Agro-Industrial Workers Union. He became one of the leaders of a fraction within the trade union that staunchly opposed state interference in the union's affairs when Lukashenko's regime ordered the KGB to restore state control over trade unions. In 2002, Yarashuk was elected president of the Belarusian Congress of Democratic Trade Unions and has been leading the BKDP ever since. Over the past 20 years, the BKDP has become the most influential organization of Belarusian workers, running workers' organization campaigns with an increased focus on the struggle for democracy, both in the workplace and in society. Many BKDP members were among the activists who rallied against the seizure of power by Belarusian dictator Lukashenko during the wave of mass protest in 2020. In 2021, the independent trade union movement in Belarus, represented by BKDP and its affiliates, were awarded the Arthur Svensson Prize for their fearless struggle for democracy and fundamental trade union rights. Since the 2020 pro-democracy movement, the government has dismantled all independent unions, dissolving the BKDP and its affiliates. Dozens of union leaders and activists have been jailed on fabricated charges, including BKDP President Aliaksandr Yarashuk. In the spring of 2022, Yarashuk publicly protested Belarus' participation in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Following this statement, Yarashuk was arrested and placed in custody. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison for threats to national security. On April the 21st of 2023, the Belarusian Ministry of Internal Affairs added the political prisoners to a list of extremists. Yarashuk was punished for his courage to publicly oppose the state and fight for democracy, both at workplaces, in unions, and in society at large. By placing him under arrest, the authorities have isolated him and disabled his participation in the ILO and other UN bodies. The prize for 2025 was announced as part of the international campaign organized by Solidarność. We will now watch one of the videos Solidarność made for the campaign.
There are no more trade unions in Belarus. Dozens of trade union leaders have been imprisoned, hundreds of activists have been forced to leave the country, and most members of the dissolved trade unions cannot belong to a trade union of their own choosing because democratic trade unions have been banned and their activities have been classified as extremist. Hundreds of workers have been arrested directly at their workplaces for subscriptions to independent sources of information. Thousands of trade union members are constantly threatened with dismissal and denial of employment rights for being members of a democratic trade union. We have no right to forget the thousands of political prisoners, including our brothers and sisters who are subjected to humiliation, torture, and forced labor. We cannot remain silent. Trade union activism is not extremism.
As stated in this video, we have no right to forget the thousands of political prisoners. When Narges Mohammadi, the Iranian human rights activist, was awarded the Nobel Prize for 2023, one of her former fellow inmates told that when she arrived at her cell after being interrogated and abused for a long time, it was a huge relief when Mohammadi and the fellow political prisoners said her name out loud. The guards had told her repeatedly, "Nobody knows who you are. Nobody cares about you. You mean nothing to nobody. No one will remember you." We will not forget Yarashuk and the other political prisoners in Belarus. Thank you for being here today to show support, and we know that people around the world follow our stream and support the political prisoners. Thank you. Among Yarashuk's supporters, we have last year's prize recipient, Kaing Saraung. She is a strong trade unionist who, together with fellow unionists and other freedom fighters, fight for democracy and trade union rights in Myanmar. Last week, she was in Geneva at the ILO Labour Conference, where she lobbied the use of ILO Article 33 against the regime in Myanmar. The struggle and fights the labor movement in Myanmar and Belarus share are reminders of how important global solidarity is. The use of ILO Article 33 is one of them. BKDP initiated a complaint to the ILO Committee on Freedom of Association back in 2002. The persistent unwillingness of the Belarusian government to respond to this complaint is, in a meaningful way during the past 2 decades, led to the ILO's decision to apply Article 33 of its constitution to Belarus in 2022. The article had only been used once before, in 2000 against Myanmar, due to widespread forced labor. The Confederation of Trade Unions of Myanmar and the Industrial Workers Federation of Myanmar, where Kaing Saraung is the president, called on ILO to invoke Article 33 again this year due to forced labor, modern slavery, and repression on the right to organize. And they won. Last week, the ILO decided to apply Article 33 to Myanmar. At the ILO Norway Congress in May, a resolution supporting this claim was adopted. It is important that we support this unique mechanism within the ILO jurisprudence designed to protect a fundamental human right, the right of workers to organize and act collectively. If further developed, the Article 33 mechanism will be available to workers of all countries who face extreme repression on their internationally recognized rights. We will now watch Kaing Saraung's greeting.
Dear friends, colleagues, brothers, and sisters, good evening. In dark times, there is nothing more important than hope. The oppressors of this world want those they throw in prison to become invisible and forgotten. They want them in us to lose hope. The Ardent Svensson Prize gives recognition and hope. It provides visibility. People around the world learn about Aliaksandr Yarashuk, a courageous trade unionist from a country, a man who speaks out against war and stands up for the right to be free. I do not know Aliaksandr personally, but I know that we believe in the same principles and values. In my country, Myanmar, a brutal military dictatorship is bombing our people. As in Belarus, trade unionists are being imprisoned, persecuted, and forced to flee the country. When my trade union colleagues and I received the Ardent Svensson Prize last year, It was important not only for me, but for all trade unionists from my homeland. Knowing that we are not alone in our struggle is so important, especially when dictators seem all-powerful. It is incredibly difficult to keep fighting. And without international solidarity and help, it is impossible. In dark time, many people simply keep their heads down and their mouths shut. The few who rise up, like Aliaksandr Yarashuk, pay a high price for their courage, but they gave hope and strength to others. Today, I would like to send my warmest greetings to Aliaksandr Yarashuk, his family, his friends, and his union colleague. You are not alone, and we, the people, will overthrow the dictators in your country. We fight to win. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. In Belarus, new laws criminalize union activity, protest, and foreign support. Unionists are smeared as extremists, while workplaces force workers into pro-government unions, stripping them of real representation. These are not isolated incidents. They are part of a coordinated attack on organized labor. Peaceful protesters are jailed, union offices raided, families torn apart, and dissenters exiled or imprisoned. I would like to quote Atle Høie. These are not just attacks on organizations. They are attacks on people, on workers who want nothing more than dignity, safety, and a say in their own lives. Aliaksandr Yarashuk is the only incumbent member of the elected governing body of the UN International Labour Organization in a modern history who is placed under arrest. The campaign for his release is a campaign aimed at maintaining respect for the ILO, as it seeks to ensure safety and freedom of speech for those who lead the organization. Yarashuk is also a vice president of the International Trade Union Confederation, and we have a video greeting from the ETUC president, Luc Triangel.
Dear friends, I'm sorry that I cannot be with you in person today in Oslo, but I'm honored to pay tribute to an extraordinary trade unionist, a man whose courage and commitment define the very spirit of trade unionism. Aliaksandr Yarashuk is a true hero of the labor movement. And as president of the Belarusian Congress of Democratic Trade Unions, a member of the ILO governing body, and a lifelong defender of workers' rights, Aliaksandr has never wavered in his principles, even when it cost him his freedom. Since April 2022, he has been unjustly imprisoned by the Lukashenko regime for standing up for democracy, decent work, and trade union rights. His bravery in the face of repression is an inspiration to all of us. Aliaksandr represents the very best of our movement, a relentless commitment to peace and justice, a deep belief in democracy, and a steadfast dedication to the rights of working people. This prize honors not only his personal sacrifice, but also the struggle of every independent trade unionist in Belarus. And the I2C, we all together, calls once again, for the immediate release of Aliaksandr Yarashuk and all imprisoned trade unionists in Belarus. We stand in full solidarity with the BKDP and with all those fighting for free, democratic trade unions. Let this award be a reminder to the world. Trade union rights are human rights, and we will not rest until they are respected everywhere.
I agree with you, Luke. Let this award be a reminder to the world. Trade union rights are human rights, and we will not rest until they are respected everywhere. A global trade union movement calls on Belarus to reinstate independent trade unions, release all jailed unionists, repeal repressive laws, and allow ILO and humanitarian access. Luke Triangle has stated that the brutal assault by the autocratic government of Lukashenko on independent trade unions in Belarus is an attack on democracy itself. But the global trade union movement will not stand by. The international solidarity is essential to end this repression and bring accountability to those responsible. The courage of Belarus trade unionists reminds us that trade unionism is not a crime, it's a cornerstone of democracy. The Belarusian government has escalated repression against independent trade unions and their members, but Yarashuk refuses to be intimidated and silenced. Anti-democratic forces are trying to crack down freedom of expression and freedom of association. Fortunately, there are counter forces, and Yarashuk is one of these forces. His fight is not just about Belarus, but about fundamental rights all over the world. We are faced with a worsening global crisis for workers and unions. Yarashuk gives us hope in this crisis. The committee wants to honor Yarashuk's resolution and long-standing fight for trade union rights by awarding him the 2025 Arthur Svensson International Prize for Trade Union Rights. We will of course invite Yarashuk to Norway when he is released so that we can show our respect and celebrate him himself. But for now, I will invite the representatives of Solidarność to receive the prize on his behalf. Please come on stage.
Dear sisters and brothers, it's a great honor for me to accept this prestigious award on behalf of my father, Aliaksandr Yarashuk, the chairman of the Belarusian Congress of Democratic Trade Unions. He worked to make Belarus a country where human rights, decent work, and social justice are not just slogans, but the norm. When the repressions began in Belarus, including against independent trade unions, he didn't look for a safe place. Staying with his comrades, fellow unionists, was a conscious and principled decision. My father was sent to a prison for his trade union work, for his public stance, and for having the courage to speak openly. Yes, a person can be imprisoned, isolated, silenced. But you can't imprison the truth, just like you can't lock up freedom or an idea. Bars and walls won't stop them. Never. Aliaksandr Yarashuk is not here today with us, unfortunately. But today, on this stage, his voice is louder than ever, because you all stood with him. Because trade union solidarity, it's not just a word, It means one for all and all for one. The Arthur Svensson Prize is not just an award. It's a reminder that the fight for workers' rights is real, and the real people are behind it. One of them is my father. On behalf of our family, I want to thank everyone who supports him in this difficult time. This award is not only a recognition of what he has done, it's also a symbol of hope for everyone fighting for justice. Tusen tack. Thank you.
On behalf of the comrades of Aliaksandr Yarashuk, I would also like to thank you very much for awarding him this prize. And from our side, we promise that we will continue fighting until freedom of association is back in Belarus. And I would like to tell you some more words about the musicians that you met today. Those are musicians that are in exile, as well as many other activists from Belarus. I used to play in this band when I was much younger. Yeah, and this is not a coincidence that they were invited here. I also asked them to perform a song which is not written by them, but which is one of the favorite songs of Aliaksandr Yarashuk. It is a song saying that the walls will fall, no matter how big they are at the moment. And this is a symbol of hope for our movement and for all the workers globally. So I would like to invite my dear friends from the band called Dituki, which is extremist, of course, in Belarus. And you're welcome to listen to the final song.
Іде, налетіла нагродна зима, ходник слизький і вузький, мур високий турма. Сьогодні з гэтага боку гуляю мимо яе. А што адбудзецца заўтра? Маўчаць анёлы мае, маўчаць анёлы мае, маўчаць анёлы мае. Наша турма со славой от царской польской поры. Тут садили великие люди з подручників з Макари. Сьогодні з гэтага боку гуляю мимо я. А что отбудется завтра? Молчать, анёлы мои, молчать, анёлы мои, молчать, анёлы мои, молчать, анёлы мои, молчать, анёлы мои. Наша турм. Народ бежит и штукается, нема часу яму гулять. Демократи няхай видурняються, треба красти і зароблять. У провінції гора веселая, ми не вязні не ми. Голуби летуть над костелом. Над фараным Лизом костелом з нашого города з тобою. Молчать, анёлы мои.
The next, and I hope the last song, will be about one of the symbol of Belarus. The main bird for us is a stock, busil in Belarusian.
In Armenian is arakel, in Ukrainian leka, in Polish language bochon. In Belarusian is бусел. Над луком бусел пролетел, и ты за им подняться захотел. Былая шань, ничего не додумал. Ти буде край, ти прийде знов війна. Ти просто до військового вікна. Смерть зазирне, помолчить знайома. Бусел пролетел, над луком бусел минув, той час пропав, той лад. Здається, і шляху нема назад. Війна і смерть на півночі і півдні. А світ забувся і тривожить сон, що спала блока у білих бачить йом, що не дає, про що до веку помню.
I would like to thank you all for attending this ceremony here in Oslo and on our stream. I hope you all learned something new about Belarus and that you all will raise your voices and demand the release of Aliaksandr Yarashuk and all the other political prisoners. I would like to use this opportunity to thank all those who nominated candidates for the prize. Please continue to send your nominations. I would like to thank the speakers, Alexandre, Svein Tore, Elisabeth, Frode, and of course, Yuri's very touching words. Thank you so much. I would like to thank the musicians, both for the music, but also reminding us of the difficult conditions artists have in non-democratic regimes. And I hope that this ceremony made you proud. Made you proud of belonging to the world's largest democratic force, the trade union movement, where we have courageous heroes like Aliaksandr Yarashuk. Thank you all.